Good night, everyone. Sorry, my mic was mute. All right, so welcome everyone to the Real Family Talk, building shatterproof families one brick at a time. We're happy to have you here tonight, and we look forward to engaging in a program provided by our minister. Sorry, pro- produced by our host, Ministry of Faith. Oh my gosh, my screen is stuck. 1 minute. Okay, you guys can still hear me? I can't see. Well, I
Yes, we
can't see the Zoom.
can.
No.
We can
Sorry
hear
about
you,
that.
Chelsea.
My apologies. Minister Faith Tamburins in Trinidad and Tobago, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Pastor Henry, Pastor Dr. Roger Samuel, and a warm welcome to our panelists, everyone joining us on Facebook, on Zoom. And tonight we'll be talking about social media's impact on the youth. So some may ask, why this topic? Well, we just wanted something that was relatable to both the youth and also to adults. You know, people think that social media is more so for younger folks, but it actually is in these times for adults as well. And we feel like given the circumstances of the pandemic, our social media presence has been a lot greater. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop the questions in the chat. Somebody will be monitoring them. And after each segment, we will have a question and answer segment. So I will formally introduce myself. My name is Chelsea Best. I am a level 3 electrical and computer engineering student at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago. And I have the pleasure of being your moderator for tonight. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce our three panelists, starting with Miss Kayla.
Hi, good night, everyone. My name is Kayla Rennick. I'm 17 years old and I go to Harrison College in Barbados. I represent my country in both swimming and triathlon, and I'm excited to be here with all of you tonight.
Okay, moving on to Javon.
Good night, everybody. My name is Javon Andrew from Grenada. Currently, I'm a student athlete at the T.A. Marshall Community College here in Grenada, pursuing studies in natural science, hopefully to get into the field of sports science, basically majoring in physiotherapy. And I'm definitely happy to be here at this program tonight.
Good night, everyone. I'm Ronelle Francis. I'm 17 years old. I used to go to Corpus Christi College here in Trinidad and Tobago, and currently I'm studying information technology and principal of accounts for exams in June. And I'm excited to be here tonight.
Okay, great. So we have a diverse group of panelists here today. And we are going to start by talking about the amount of time we spend on social media. So we can start with Javon. And my question to you is, on average, how much time do you think you spend on social media? And what is it that you're doing on social media?
Right. Well, for me, in my case, it kind of fluctuates, but on average, I tend to see that I have a lot, not a lot, but probably ranging between 3 to 5 hours of screen time. I usually keep track of that on my phone, and the activities I indulge in while being online so long, I usually tend to be looking at video clips on YouTube, probably chatting with friends on social media, but as well trying to keep in the loop because there are certain trends and so on that as young people you want to be aware of. So basically those kinds of stuff is what I find myself doing within the space that I'm on social media.
Okay. All right. And how about you, Renal?
I would say on average per day, it fluctuates, as Javon said, it's based on whatever I'm doing on that day. But on average, I might spend between 4 to 5 hours per day on social media. And when I'm on social media, I'd be on different apps, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp, basically using it for entertainment and to keep in touch with friends and family.
Okay.
I can spend probably as much as 6 hours on social media. Most of my time spent on social media is to take a break from school, etc. Sitting down hearing teachers talk from 9 to 3 every single day from Monday to Friday can get really boring really fast. And sometimes you just need to take a break from that.
All right. Okay, well, for me, I can relate completely, but today was a good day for me. I can show you guys how much time I spent on social media, which was about 5 hours, but this will fluctuate between WhatsApp, YouTube, like everyone said, Instagram. But this is not always a good day. This is very low normally. But I would like to show you Kayla's screen time for today. So she has 8 hours and 28 minutes. And based on her trend, this is normal. But like we said, given everything that is going on in these times, we found that we have no choice at this point, in terms of classes and schools, YouTube videos, like they said, being on WhatsApp is like a must in these times. So tonight we're gonna kind of go through and we have a lot of parents here, so we're gonna give you a sense of why your kids might be on social media and an understanding of how it makes us feel. So I'm going to pose a question and ask, what do you guys do when you spend too much time on social media? We can start with Kayla.
For me, one of the main problems I have with social media is eventually you begin with, okay, I'm gonna just use social media, take a break for 15 minutes, and then you get distracted so easily, and then you find your 15-minute break has turned into an hour and a half, 2 hours on different apps, and you're like, oh shoot, I had work to do, or I had X, Y, and Z to do.
Yeah, I agree. How about you?
I want to share similar sentiments as it concerns that as well. I am very guilty of that. I tend to find myself saying I would spend probably half an hour on my phone before I get back to school, and that half an hour can easily turn into 2-3 hours sometimes. So it happens. I mean, that's just the nature of social media these days. They have stuff there that is programmed to know the type of individual that you are, and they'll put things that interest you. So it's easy to grab your attention, especially as a young person on social media. So I share similar sentiments in that regards.
Okay.
Yes, I definitely agree with what Kayla and Javon said. But what I have to add to that is sometimes we procrastinate a lot based on what they said. Sometimes we say, okay, I'll take a half an hour, and then a half an hour turns into hours, and it distracts us from what is more important. And then we realize, okay, it's getting late. Let me try to do what I have to do, and then by that time, you're trying to fit everything into the little space of time you have left in that day.
Yeah, I agree. So would you say that it is hard to manage your time using social media? That's what I'm getting from everybody.
I guess it would be hard if somebody don't have a timetable. A timetable really helps, especially when you set specific time frames for things that you have to do during a day. Let's say you have to study materials, go from a certain time period, and then you set aside time for leisure as well. So I guess if you manage it that way, it will be a lot easier.
Time management, for me personally, as a student athlete, it has always played a major role in my life. So when it comes to, putting down a phone or saying, okay, I have X, Y, and Z to do now, so let me just take a break, it is a bit easier than it may be for some people. But this also depends on the individual themselves. They have to know their limitations. Age also plays a major role in this, in time management. And although this is still difficult for everybody, it would be easier for someone who is older or more mature. I would say, like, to parents, if you know your child is easily distracted by social media, instead of responding negatively and complaining, like, just find alternate ways in which your children can like occupy their time.
Right. I agree with the both panelists. To answer the question, is it easy to manage? I think it could go both ways, right? It becomes easy if, like you said, you have a routine, because we are humans, we are beings of habit, right? So if you have a program, a routine that you follow strictly every day, it is easy for you to be able to go along the lines of that program and stick to it, as opposed to somebody who doesn't have that structured layout of how they're supposed to spend their day. It's going to be a lot easier for them to get distracted by social media and find themselves being consumed by all the activities that are put on there, and they wouldn't even realize the amount of time that they spend on it. So I think it's all down to the individual and the habits that you have as a personal individual as well. I think parents have a particular role in probably helping structure that as well.
Okay. I agree. From that, I feel like we hit the sense of what's the word? Oh wait. Okay, I can't remember the word right now. But from that, it's all about time management, and it was not only with respect to social media, but in life in general. So as we get older, like for me, for instance, when I left home, it was a whole new chapter of life. And I had to manage my time, whereas I could sit in my bed and be on my phone all day. I had other responsibilities to do. So I believe, in a sense, I was prepared for that based on how my parents brought me up. But other people I've witnessed might say, well, I don't have to cook, I could just buy food. And in a sense, that's very unhealthy and carries you down the wrong road. So once your parents, I feel like my parents had instilled in me, you have to take care of yourself. And social media can be extremely, extremely distracting. And like they said, we don't realize how much time goes by when we just want to spend 5 minutes and it turns into like 30 minutes. So we spend a lot of time on social media, but I believe as we all mature, it gets better, but it should be instilled in us from our youth. So I would like to open the floor to any questions, whether it be on Zoom or Facebook. Any questions? If anything was unclear, if any of the panelists have any questions. If not, we can go into our next segment, which deals with the significant impact of social media on our lives. So just wait on one moment to see if anybody has any questions. But it does not seem that way. Okay, so how does social media impact our life on a daily basis? So my question is to the panelists is what's the hype about social media? What is it that captivates us so much that we have to spend hours on top of hours on social media platforms? We can start with.
I guess, I don't know, most persons might find social media a big hype because most people are trying to make their life look a certain way when probably it isn't. And I'm not saying that everybody is like that, but in most cases, it is. And also, sometimes there's some good entertaining content on social media. You find yourself watching one video, you give yourself a limit, okay, I'll just watch 4 videos for the most. And after those 4 videos, you see something else interesting and you go on to that one and it just takes you into a whole bunch of time wasting. So I believe that is the 2 major reasons why it's that popular, I guess.
Right. Javon?
Right. I think social media is, well, quote unquote, important because, first of all, it connects persons, right? As we are doing right now, we're using our social media platform basically to be able to have this program. Now, as I can speak from a youthful point of view, it is somewhat important to stay connected with friends. That is a major thing, especially when you're young. You want to stay connected with your friends and talk about the relevant stuff, things that are happening and are trending as well. Another thing, like I mentioned earlier, is the fact that social media is programmed somewhat to pick up your activities, right? And then sooner or later you recognize that on your For You page or recommended for you, you realize everything that comes up and shows up is what you take interest in or things that you view frequently. So that as well, the fact that it provides the avenue for you to see things that you take particular interest in, I think it gives us significant impact, particularly on youth. I don't want to say just youth because I know persons beyond the youthful age as well may have struggles with social media as well. Y'all persons on the program can feel free to share if you have had similar experiences like us as well.
For me, before being asked this question and preparing for this talk, I never really thought of a question like this. I personally I personally don't think there's a sense of hype to the popularity of social media. I think because of the day and age we live in, social media has kind of become the norm for people our age. I think it'll be rare for you to find a teenager who doesn't have a social media platform or profile on a specific app or at least one. Um, I This probably was not the case about 20 years ago. I think social media is so popular because if you see all your friends using this one app and they come to school or you're talking to this group chat and they ask about this specific joke or meme that they saw and you're not in the loop, you're gonna easily go home and probably download that app and create a profile to become aware of the things that they talk about. So because it's so easy to have access to it, I think it's just normal to us.
I completely agree. Social media has its pros and its cons. The pros being it is a great way for us to communicate with each other, whether we be right next to each other or across the globe. That is the technology that we have right now. But it also has its negative. And for example, I'm going to share a link in the chat, but this is one of the disadvantages and the negatives of social media in our times. And this is where parents have to really monitor what their kids are doing because this is just devastating. So I shared the link. And in Trinidad and Tobago, a few, like 2 weeks ago, there was this boy and he was using TikTok. And TikTok, as most of us would know, is a new platform in a sense, sort of, where we do like skits and dances. And this is the trend right now. So this boy was doing this TikTok and it was a choking challenge or whatever. And it's basically when you try to choke yourself and pass out. And he was 9 years old and he attempted the challenge and he died. And he was only 9 years old. So it is like it has its pros and its cons, but I feel that in this instance, the cons outweigh the pros. And this is a classic example, and this is not the first time. This is not a new trend. This is pretty old actually, but this social media platform has brought it back into existence. And of course, nobody is really monitoring or care. Nobody on TikTok side really cares. They're not monitoring to realize that people can actually die from this. So this is when parents step in and have to teach their kids from young, this is not something you should be doing. But I do also understand that, I mean, this is the day we live in and you can't be on your kids every single day. But this is a very unfortunate situation that happens. And my question to the panelists now would be, what would you say the pros and the cons of social media have been for you, or have your friends experienced anything like this?
I would say for me, the main pro for social media is it allows you to stay connected to your friends, to your family, to parents. You know, you can message a friend for help. You can message a family member so easily. Like as an athlete, I travel the region. So those people that I meet at swim meets and stuff, I can still stay into contact after those meets etc. are done. And then the main con for me is the distraction it carries. You can easily get distracted and carried away on social media. So this allows you to go from website to website, you know, thinking, oh, you still have time in the specific sort of time you've allocated, and then you realize the outside's getting dark, or your 15 minutes has passed and you're like, oh shoot.
How about you, Renal?
Okay, so some of the pros that I know is that it helps, as Kayla said, it helps to keep in contact with friends and family, whether they be abroad or a little distance from you. And also it helps with education. There's a lot of educational videos on YouTube and other social media platforms that you can learn from. And some of the cons are that, as you mentioned before, Chelsea, there are these challenges that can be a little risky. I remember one of them being the ice bucket challenge. Everybody wanted to be in that, and it was kind of dangerous. And another one being cyberbullying. There's a lot of cyberbullying going on. I see it every day, and that could lead to suicide.
All right, I get you. I completely understand because I did the ice bucket challenge, and looking back at it, no, I could have died because that we live in such a hot place, and that was in summer, and I threw a bucket of ice on myself, and I don't even think I went inside. I don't even remember what I did, but I know that I didn't try to adjust my body temperature based on the oh my goodness, the amount of ice that was just thrown on me. So that leads me into, like Kayla said, schoolwork. You know, it takes so much time away from us, but would you guys say it takes, how much time would you guys say it takes?
I guess if somebody has, as I mentioned before, if you have a timetable, you won't run into any issues. But if you don't have a timetable, it's easier to get distracted, and the time that you have to study it will keep lessening down as the days go by and as the time frame of the days go by.
All right. Okay, actually, I can pose a different question because I feel like a lot of what we've said has already tied into schoolwork. How do you guys feel
Right,
about?
but hold on.
Go
Before you
ahead.
continue, right? One thing I wanted to share based on the previous question, right? I think one of the other cons that we will see in today's society, particularly from a Caribbean standpoint, is that there tends to be very subtle cultural erasure taking place, right? Because of all these different activities that are promoted on social media, we tend to
Oh shoot! Sorry.
that we have, and we tend to look towards what we see ever so presently on social media, right? So some simple things like what the ideal female looks like. You see a lot of girls start to follow that, right? And body shame themselves and don't feel comfortable with the bodies that they're put in because of what is promoted on social media. That is just a clinical example of that. So I think that is definitely one of the cons to social media as well, along with what the other panelists said. And one of the pros for me still remains that there's just access to a lot of information. I think that's probably one of the biggest bonuses with social media and media in general. There's vast knowledge that can be gained from using it. You get to encounter information from different parts of the world. And if you use it in the right way, I think that you can develop and enhance yourself as an individual, provided that you use social media in the way that I think it should be used.
All right. So your point actually ties right into my question I was about to ask, how social media makes us feel in terms of likes and who views our pictures. And I could start by saying you know, sometimes I would be completely off of, like, I would be on Instagram, but I wouldn't have posted in, like, let's say months, literally. And then I'd be like, but I haven't posted. Let me go and take a picture, dress up, and do a whole bunch of things just to post this picture and get some likes. And most of the time, the likes go up in like a matter of seconds, and that makes me be like, I just neglecting these people. But if it doesn't, then it is like, oh my gosh, why don't people like my pictures? And if I didn't have the self-esteem I have, say I had a low self-esteem, that could be a significantly negative that could significantly negatively affect my life, if you understand what I'm saying. So my question again is, how do you feel about this, like the likes and the stigma behind having to post?
I personally think as it allows you to shape yourself as a person, it allows you to, you shouldn't really have to depend on other people to like your post or your some whatever you post trend or whatever. Everybody think, oh my gosh, this is so nice, in order for you to feel confident and happy with who you are as a person. Although yes, this does affect some people, I think that you should be able to be confident in yourself and happy and content with who you are as a person, how you look, where you came from, without having to get the worship and praise or the amount of likes from other people who don't even know you.
I agree. You know?
I don't really post a lot of pictures on social media. The most time I do is just put up a profile picture. But say I post a picture every day or 2 times a week or so, I would find myself doing that because one of the reasons is you don't necessarily know who is watching. And it's kind of dangerous, I would say, in these times where a lot of females are being kidnapped and so on, especially the type of pictures they post. But I believe if somebody posts a picture and the likes don't go up the way they want it to, they might just delete the picture or so on. So it all depends on their mentality and what they really see social media as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both panelists. I think social media is often used to try to build your self-esteem as an individual, but I don't think it's a logical thing to do, because like y'all have expressed, there are instances where persons may not react positively to what you post about yourself, or whether you post and you don't get as much likes as you anticipated, and that can damage you and your confidence eventually. So I think in terms of building confidence, I think other methods need to be explored. Um, Probably this is a topic that could be discussing another program, because you could get far from the topic in discussing that. But I think it's using social media as a means of building your confidence. I think that's probably a wrong way to really do it. It can be done, and it is done in today's society, but it's not safe, because people are unpredictable. Today, they react nicely to what you post, and then tomorrow it's a different story. And if you're not a headstrong person, that can affect you really badly mentally. So it's not really a safe thing to do.
Exactly. Which would yeah, based on what you guys are saying, we should really monitor our social media, like Instagram, I know, and Twitter, and lots of them. You can lock your profile, so people have to request to follow you. And most of the times, well, that's what I do. But I think that a lot of the young people don't do that because of the same stigma. We want likes. We want everybody to see what we're doing and appear as though life is just amazing, when it is really not for a lot of people. So but these are things that have to be instilled in children from young. You know, we can't depend and think that people liking our pictures really matters. So I'm going to answer a few of the questions in the chat. Someone says, would you term it as a necessary evil? I assume, okay. Right. So somebody, okay. So would anyone like to answer this question, or I could take it?
I don't mind sharing on this. Is it an evil? like I said, social media, it's basically two mirrors. It has a bad side, it has a good side. Now, if you could choose to call the negative side evil, I wouldn't stop you from doing that. It's basically your perspective and how you take it. But like I said, it all boils down on how you use social media and the things that you indulge in when you're on social media that really defines what social media is. At this point, I think because of the activities that we find ourselves partaking in on social media, it creates that kind of negative stereotype over the pros of social media. So I don't blame the person for asking that question. It's a very good question. But for me, knowing what social media is and the platform that it provides, I wouldn't want to go ahead and just say it's an unnecessary evil. Just my personal point of view. Somebody may differ.
Right. I agree completely. I wouldn't call it an evil in particular, but it does has its negative impacts. Anyone else has a different view?
No, I
Okay.
agree with
So
what
the
both you and Javon said.
Right. So somebody says, does the affirmations such as likes and comments on Facebook keep the youth tuned into the programs? Okay, so like basically like this program we're having right now, this platform was posted on social media. It was Facebook, it was sent to us, it was sent via WhatsApp, it was posted on Instagram, probably Twitter. So the question asks, would you guys say that the amount of likes basically that a picture might get, like this program, would really show how much people really would turn up in a sense?
I won't necessarily say likes and comments specifically, but if you do see, friends or like people from school talking about this one specific program or this one specific TV show, you're all gonna probably be like, ooh, what's all the hype about? And then go, and try to like watch one episode or go and watch one and click on the link and watch the first few minutes. And then from there, if you start to watch it and you're like, oh, this is really good. And then you go and tell some of your other friends who don't know about it or whatever, and then they go and it just expands like that. So I think like the popularity of a program does affect it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I agree.
Right. So not necessarily the likes and the comments, but more so the fact that the social media platform gets the information out there to people. The next question we have is, what age should a parent allow a child to have access to social media? Javon?
I think that is a very interesting question because it is something that it changes as time goes on. Because in my case in particular, the first time I got into social media, I was probably around 12 or 13. And the reason why I got onto social media was because I started becoming a bit more social, meeting a few friends that lived far away from me, and I wanted to be able to keep in contact with them. That happened when I started going to camps and so on. I started meeting people. So it changes because right now, I have a sister. In fact, I have two sisters. The youngest sister is only 11 years old, and she's on social media already, right? So I think that it changes, but based on the experiences that you have, that question is probably one for the parents, asking them what is the rationale for some of those decisions that they make or when they see fit. But I think it's all down to the responsibility. If a parent recognizes that their child is responsible enough to be able to manage social media, I think you could probably take the chance, depending on at what age that child shows that they're responsible enough to handle both negative and positive effects that social media will have. Because let's not forget that social media also promotes a lot of negative content. You have exposure to pornography and all other things that are very addictive and that can mess with you mentally. So the responsibility part is something that you need to identify within that child before you decide, okay, it's time to let them out on social media. Certain amounts of knowledge need to be had by those kids about social media so that they're able to maneuver and manipulate it when they actually get onto it.
I agree totally with what Javon said. I think not a specific age, but more so the maturity of the child, because a child at 13 could be more mature than a child who's 15 or 16. And it also tends to deal with the day and age we live in. I know I have a brother, for example, and he probably knows how to use an iPad better than I do. When I was 5 years old, I probably didn't even know what an iPad was. I think like children growing up now, they are more intact and more interested in social media as opposed to like running around outside. So from a very young age, they're taking up on the device and clicking on YouTube and watching certain videos and stuff like that. But for us or people older than us, it was a lot older that they got these privileges. So instead of age, I would more so say it depends on the maturity of the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. With what both Javon and Kayla said, it all depends on the maturity and how responsible you think your child is. And even though, your child may be responsible or mature, I believe that even if they're still young, you should have like limits. So where they can go if it's YouTube, because we all know social media have a lot to offer, a lot of negative things to offer. So.
All right, I completely agree. But noting that social media isn't only Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, it is also WhatsApp and all other forms of communication in a sense. So I know a lot of parents in these days use the iPad, for instance, and go on YouTube and bring up educational things for the kids to see. But in our day, it wasn't like that. We had to read a book. So technology has made it a lot easier. I know, you can't get away from it at all. So like everyone said, you have to monitor them in simple things like getting a phone at a young age. For me, I had to buy my first phone. And when I got it, it was like so amazing. But my parents were still strict in what I was doing. So it's a case where, you instill in your kids, but when they reach that age where they're going to use those different types of social media platforms is when you really have to monitor them a lot more. Next question, but there also are lots of parental modes on these devices. The next question asks, okay, that was the age. What is your experience with your parents who may be out of touch with technology, sorry. So yes. Kayla?
I think won't necessarily say there are many parents who are out of touch with technology, especially because of the era we live in now. For me personally, with like my mom, she knows how to work, the basic camera and WhatsApp, but there's still certain things, that you're like, you have to explain to them, and in your head it's like, mommy, how do you not know how to do this? And then you remember, well, she won't be as advanced, for example, in like the certain apps or whatever. Yeah, it's just more so explaining specific things to them as opposed to saying, mommy, you should get a phone and stuff like that.
I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah, just recently, well, I could say for my father, more so. Just recently I saw him on the tablet and he was scrolling through Instagram, the Explore page, and he was having a fun time laughing away, seeing these different videos. So I guess he kind of understand what we really experience when we're on social media. So hopefully he understand a little bit.
I don't know if Javon has anything to add.
Yes, well, I saw somebody put in the chat, educate your parents, right? Because they educated you. Sadly, I do not have the privilege of doing that because both my parents are very versed with technology. I think it's because of the era that we live in. just your general job right now, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. It has become very crucial for persons to be able to use and interact with the interface, particularly through media, right? So I think it is important. I haven't had the experience of any of my parents not knowing what technology is. I mean, yes, I did IT in secondary school, so there are probably a few technical terms and so on that I might know that they might not know. And I would, speak to them about it. But just thinking about it, persons who have parents who are not as versed and not versatile with the information about technology, I think that could be somewhat a negative thing or a bad thing, especially for the individuals, because if a parent is not aware of what social media entails and what it could do to their child, I don't think they're going to be able to help protect, place their child under an umbrella to be able to shadow them from the negative impacts. I think they're just going to get a full blow, and whoever that individual reacts to it is going to be totally up to the child, and the parent basically has no say or understanding of what's really happening to their child. So where they, in cases you might find children acting strange after using such social media, and you might wonder, okay, what's really happening as a parent, right? That's not in tune with technology and social media as well. And you may be wondering what's happening to your child, but it's simply because you don't understand what social media can do. It kind of leaves you blindsided to the effects that it's going to have on your child. So I think it's important, whether it's a little bit or a lot of knowledge on social media, I think it's important for parents to have some base on technology and social media.
I completely agree. I couldn't have said it any better. I think that how parents that don't know about social media, they can learn with their kids. You monitor what your children are doing, and as they go on these apps or these sites or these whatever, you go as well and you learn as they learn. And if you realize that they've looked at something that is inappropriate or you don't think is, based on their age is inappropriate, then you speak to them then and there and continue that process where you learn and the child learns and everybody's good. So the next question, I think I saw something about a timer. Yes, do you think parents should put timers on children's devices? And someone said, yes, they should put timers on children's devices. They need to be protected. And also said, I think it depends on the maturity level of an individual. So do you guys agree with this comment?
Definitely, it's all down to the maturity. Like I said, if you have someone just getting onto social media, obviously you would want to have a firm grip on the amount of time that they spend, that they don't get overexposed to the content that's basically provided on there. So it's all down to the maturity. The maturity is what depends the intensity of the restrictions that parents put on the devices and social media as well.
I think with the timer on the devices, I think it has a lot more to do with more than just protecting your child and knowing your child's capabilities. If once your child has a device in their hand, they're not going to do anything. They're going to totally forget about all their other responsibilities and other things that they may have to do, then yes, this will work. For me personally, I think I'm like at the age where I can, say, okay, it's this time, so I have to put down my device and go to sleep or thing. Because like for me, for training, for example, I have to wake up to get to the pool for 5 o'clock in the morning. And if I'm up till 11:30, 12 o'clock, just scrolling through social media, hurting my eyes, then when it's time you hear the alarm at 4:30, it's like you just want to click snooze and go back to bed when you're supposed to be at that training session. This won't be the case for everybody, but at the same time, even if you don't have to wake up at for 5, you might have to wake up at 6 to get ready for school, or 7 or 8. It all depends. But I think the time shutting down the device at a specific time will be beneficial in some cases, but then in other cases, children might feel like, oh, your parents don't trust you enough, because there are some nights that you might have to be up past the time that your device is shut down to like do work and stuff like that. But I think it all personally depends on the child and the parent and their relationship.
I agree.
I completely agree. So the next question asks, does does the likes and comments on social media truly validate who you are as a person? And I will say no. For me personally, it does not, because sometimes people follow me and I don't know who they are. They don't have to like my pictures. Sometimes people don't even see what you post. But there are people that actually pay for likes. So that just shows us that it really matters to some people. But for me personally, it doesn't. How do you guys feel about that one?
I agree with what you said, Chelsea. One thing I want to add is that that particular concern is something that parents need to pay attention to, because persons and their confidence and their individuality depends heavily on what parents say to them, especially in the young stage and developing stage, the way they affirm them and the positive comments that they give them. That all helps to build character and also confidence. So I think it's very essential for parents to have heavy influence on the type of person that their child becomes, right? Because that will determine whether or not that the likes and comments on social media would mean something to them, or they will be comfortable with who they are, and it really doesn't faze them. So when they post, regardless of how many persons like it, they're comfortable with who they are, and it really doesn't faze them. So
I have to
Yeah,
totally,
I agree.
yeah, I have to totally agree with Javon on this one. I think when it comes to the validation of a person and you are and how it relates to likes and comments, the I think the main problem, I guess I could say, with this is how a parent to child relationship. Because if you have a child who you don't necessarily, or if you have a parent that who doesn't necessarily pay attention to you, isn't like supportive or isn't really present in your life, you are going to turn to something else to make you feel good, or you know give you that sense of validation that you need. And I think this is where people tend to go with the likes and comments being so important. So for people who have a good relationship with their parents, who support them, right? You don't need anybody else to tell you X, Y, and Z. When it comes to likes and comments on social media, it's not saying you're necessarily not going to post because, you don't care what people think, but it's just whether you post and get 10 likes or if you post and get 1,000 likes, it's not going to change how you view yourself.
Yeah, as I said before, I don't really post pictures on social media for likes or anything, but I guess if I were to, the comments and the likes wouldn't really matter. And not saying that I don't take pictures, I do take pictures, but it's not to impress anybody. And I think it all comes back down, just as what Javon said, to your confidence and like what your parents instilled in you.
Yeah. To give an example of, I think, what Kayla said, in a sense, having a relationship with your parents, there was an instance with me when I was in secondary school. I think it was like first or second form. And one of the girls that went to school with me, her Facebook was hacked. And the person typed under all of my pictures, gay, 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 gay. And I was like, what? At the time I was in second form, I had no idea what it meant. But I went to my mom right away and I was like, Mommy, what's going on here? Like, what? Like, and it was a whole, my mom then went to the school and started it out. But if I didn't have that relationship where I could go to my mom and say, this person is like, I don't even know what's the word, insulting me on social media, then I might have gone and Google it and then find out what it really is. And that could have, again, gone in a negative direction. So having a really good relationship with your kids is very, very important. And funny enough, we actually had a segment that speaks to youth and parents. So I feel like this whole question and answer kind of hit the ball, but I'm still going to ask a few questions just to continue the conversation. So relating back to the significance, I have a question to ask, and it is, how do you feel when you forget your phone at home? How do you feel?
So for me, I've never really
Anybody?
had my phone at home, so I
Javon?
wouldn't really know. Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, so for me, I haven't really
But
left
is
my
that
phone
a
at
thing?
home before.
Yeah, we're hearing you.
So I would know how it feels to leave your phone at home, but I'm guessing that it'll just be bored, have nothing to do. I mean, it all depends on where you're going as well. If you're going somewhere important, then you won't be really studying your phone. But if you're just going somewhere with your parents where you have to like wait somewhere, you may miss it. So
Javon, Taylor.
Personally for me, I don't think it would be that challenging. Well, and right now, because of the situation we're currently in, we won't have a situation like this. Well, personally in Barbados. But if there is an instant that I leave home, say let's say to go to school and I don't have my phone, you're at school, you're there to learn, you have the periods and you have lunchtime, but you're gonna be with your friends and stuff. You're not necessarily going to be like, oh my gosh, I need my phone. But there are gonna be those occasions where I go in my pocket to take out my phone to scroll through the same social media or to, check messages and it's like, oh, it's not here. And you feel like kind of like something's missing. If you're going like Raynell said, like somewhere with your parents and you have to wait, then it's that you're almost like counting every minute until you go home because you have nothing to do to occupy your time.
Javon, have anything to add?
Right. On my end of the spectrum, for me it doesn't put me out if I leave my phone at home when I'm going out because um it could then depend on where I'm going, the event that I'm going to. Most of the time I tend to be busy doing stuff whenever I leave the house. So for me, it's not difficult to in relation to the social media, it's not difficult for me to forget my phone at home. The concern I have though is because of how busy I am and because I'm moving from different activities, it's usually essential for me to be able to make calls when I finish a particular activity during the day or so. So it's essential for those particular things, but for the use and purpose of having access to social media, it doesn't really put me up because to me, I kind of consider myself a social butterfly at times. So you would always find me mingling or talking to people. So not having my phone, it doesn't put me out much.
I agree in a sense. Somebody asked in the chat, don't you feel anxious without your phone? And everybody gave a similar answer, but I have a different point of view. Based on where I am in my life as a female, when I left home and I went to study in Trinidad, and a lot of people know what's going on in Trinidad right now. If I left my phone home, I might not have a problem because I might be going to class where most of the people I communicate with are in class with me. But if I do leave my phone home and my mom tries to contact me and she doesn't get hold of me and I'm in class from 8 till 7 some days, she is going to freak out. So it is not only me, and that of course would make me anxious. So it is not only about me feeling a way, it's about being detached from society and the people that are so used to being able to just pick up the phone and call you. And then when you get back to your phone and realize, oh my gosh, she's been calling me all day, what happened, So it's a case where it depends on the situation, but I don't leave my phone at home. Sometimes I forget my phone and I go back for it because at the end of the day, sometimes you never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah, and like you said, how you were like, if you left your phone and then you don't know till you get home, but say you get stuck in a certain place, what are
mhm,
you gonna do? You don't know. You can go and talk to the wrong person, for example, and ask them things. It's not really common that you'll see like public phones just
mhm.
around. So I think it's a lot to do with all the negative scenarios that can happen as opposed to the you just using your phone for your personal benefits.
I agree. So my next question would be, Do you think our social media activity has increased since the pandemic? So since we are basically at home for school, basically the past year, have you seen a drastic increase in your social media activity?
Yes, I definitely believe it has, especially when the pandemic had just started and online school haven't started as yet. I mean, everybody was home without anything to do, so I believe that most of the day they were on social media, and I guess that has just been, I wouldn't say normal, but I believe it has drastically increased between this time.
I agree. For me, it especially in the early stages, like Renal Express, it increased. No, a lot of people who know me, I say I am not a serious person, and I don't tend to sit down and look at movies. But at the beginning of the pandemic, you could have caught me in a corner in the house looking at something on my phone, following a few series well. So that was kind of funny looking back on it. But um, I want to say no as well because during this pandemic time that we had during the lockdown, um, we found many different activities. That's within the family, right? To keep ourselves occupied. I was surprised at the amount of hours we used to spend just interacting, playing games. It was almost a tradition that every day around 4 o'clock in the evening we would go outside on the veranda and play dominoes until the sun sets. So that used to provide the avenue for us to get away from it as well. I don't know if anybody else had this experience, but there were actually points in the pandemic where I got frustrated with seeing my phone and having to deal with it, especially when online classes became part of the picture again. I was like, any chance I got to get away from it, I was going to put it down and try to do something that does not include being online or pertaining to social media. But the answer could vary for me, but I tend to say yes because I started doing a lot more things online as we got into the pandemic and the lockdown.
I think that as both Javon and Reynel said, at the beginning, you're now getting accustomed to this, staying at home, not being able to leave your house when you can, not being able to go to school, go and train. There's a lot more time on your hands. So you tend, if you're at home, the first thing you're gonna do to, occupy your time is take up your phone or your iPad or your computer. I think also though being on the devices has also increased because there's so many options, there's so many things you can do while on these specific devices. But then like now because we have online school and stuff, we're sitting in front of the device from 9 to 3. Then we have to go on the same devices to do assignments, go on the same devices to do tasks, go on the same devices to even train. When you do get that time where you can take a break, it's like finally, you just want to turn off and think. And although you might not be able to do that long because, okay, I have to be back on for a specific class or I have to hand in this assignment by a certain amount of time, there is a lot, we have been affected a lot by the pandemic, which also affects how much time we spend online and on our devices.
I completely agree. Javon actually said something about earlier in the pandemic where he would go say at a certain time to play games or whatever with people. And if the pandemic wasn't a pandemic, that would be great because you're not on your phone, you're going outside, and it kind of gives you a sense of going back to when we were younger, when we didn't have Facebook and WhatsApp to go on, and we had to actually go outside and play with the next door neighbor. But of course, we can't in these times. And then something else about, well, me personally, for sure, I'm on social media a lot more because of the pandemic. And what I just realized is when I was in normal school, during class, I would get up and probably get water or go and get something to eat. But now that I'm at home, during class, sometimes I don't even get up. I just, if I have like a 10-minute break between class, I just hop on my phone and I just keep on scrolling. Sometimes I don't even realize class has started. And that is, in a sense, unhealthy because like Kayla said, we're sitting on every morning. I get up and I look at my computer. I go to sleep, my computer is in front of me, my phone. So we are on social media a lot now, a lot more, and it is not necessarily good, in my opinion. So we can now go into actually this to add another point. There was actually in the US 17 people committed suicide during the pandemic. So this just kind of ties into my next question of, does social media give you any satisfaction? Does it make you, I don't even know how to explain it. What does it do for you? Because if, social media is so hype, but young people are killing themselves, it clearly isn't satisfying us like some people think it is. Sorry.
As I mentioned before, cyberbullying could be one of the leads to suicide. So I guess that is one thing that probably the authorities need to look into a little more. I would say if I was to think of the needs that it meets in my life, I would probably say just communicating with friends and family, keeping in touch with them, as I mentioned before, and also education-wise. If, for instance, I'm studying information technology, if I don't understand something, I'm sure if I go on YouTube and type it up, I would find a video explaining what I needed to know. So.
I agree with what Raynell said. And like as you said about the people killing themselves in the US, social media is broad. There's such a range, there's so much you can do on it. And if in this time, you're isolated or whatever, and it's just you and your electronics, and there's so much for you to do, and people are still committed suicide, I won't say that it is meeting our needs. There are some benefits, but is social media a need? No. Is it merely a want? Yes. There is, the information is all out there. If you need it for an assignment, or if you just want to research something, it's much easier than you having to go to the library and look in a book. Not saying that looking in a book is bad, but it's just a lot easier to do it from the comfort of your home.
Right. I think it has become a lot more essential, social media right now, particularly during this crisis that we're facing in the COVID-19 pandemic. The ability to stay in contact with family members is something huge that we have witnessed and seen through this period. So yes, there are a lot of wants that will be associated with it, but I do think there are some necessities that are attributed and linked to social media and opportunities that it does give us. So for me, that is what it provides from a positive standpoint. I think particularly in this time, we do need to keep in contact with family members and loved ones. I think it's something very important because, I mean, we look at persons just dying. I mean, I don't know if anybody here has lost somebody due to the pandemic, right? But it is something that has left a lot of families devastated, right? So the fact that we are able, regardless of the distance between us, that is very positive to be able to keep in contact with family members. I think that is a need and it's necessary for that to happen. So I think you can classify that as a need.
I completely agree. And the bad thing is this number came from an article, so I'm sure that it is not the only number. But Sydney said, TikTok is a very popular app, and like I said earlier about the young boy that died from doing the TikTok challenge, he more than likely isn't the only one, and we call that suicide, but he didn't. I don't think he thought he was going to die. So it is. I don't think it is a need, but like Keila said, it is a want that needs to be monitored. So My next question is, would you substitute physical face-to-face for what we are currently going through and having to communicate via social media?
I would definitely not say social media is a substitute because you don't get the same interaction we're having now on this is not the same as if you were to have this same conversation in person. And then just with like interacting with people, the feelings, the emotions that you get from someone with a conversation in person, they can't really express that same thing when they're texting, by sending a laughing emoji. Is not the same as if you're talking to somebody and you hear them laugh in person. Um, I think social media and platforms like Zoom and stuff like that have made it easier to communicate with people if we can't do it physically, but I definitely won't say it's a substitute.
To answer that question, it has become somewhat a substitute, but would I prefer it that way? Definitely not. Yeah. Face-to-face interactions could never be replaced in my point of view. I think it's absolutely important and healthy to have face-to-face interactions with persons. Just a typical example in my situation, I realize that I am a lot more interactive and social when I'm in person with friends as opposed to if I'm on a call or even texting online. So I think that is important, even for something as simple as a program like this that we're having tonight, right? If this was a face-to-face and in-person interaction that we were having, I think there would be a lot more interaction between the audience and the panelists as well. I think it just creates that comfortable environment when you're able to see who you're dealing with face to face. It just creates a better avenue for communication. Um, Sadly, this is just what we have to deal with at this point, and we're beginning to get comfortable with it. Hence, the evidence is shown in these programs that we're having currently. But I definitely would not substitute it for face-to-face interactions. I think that is absolutely healthy and is something that we need in life. So
I agree with what Javon said. It has become a substitute because of COVID. It's not what we prefer, and I guess that's why some friend groups still find ways to see each other. And yeah, so as he said as well, face-to-face interaction can never be replaced because face-to-face interaction, you get to experience their reactions way better than if you were on phone texting. Because sometimes, I'm sure a lot of people could relate. Sometimes somebody send a message to you, send a laughing emoji, but you're not really laughing. So I guess face-to-face interaction is way more important as well.
I completely agree. Personally, social media and what we're going through right now will never substitute face-to-face communication, face-to-face classes, anything. I know personally when the pandemic started, um, I came back home and they said it was only supposed to be a week. And that was like early March. We were in Trinidad, had like 2 cases. And I came back home and they said it was supposed to be a week. And, I was normal, packed up my stuff. And I came home and then it didn't last a week. And my routine was completely altered. And it was like, what is this? And of course, I still had to continue classes. So I was boxed in my room like every single day, honestly, probably 24 hours a day. And I didn't have the human interaction that I'm used to. And personally, it was a lot. And I felt like, is this what life is going to be? Because we have to interact with people to get through life. We are not meant to just be boxed in like prisoners. And if that is how I felt as a person that, I have people in my house to talk to, I have a nice home, I don't have any needs or wants or anything. But if that is me, I can't imagine what other people must be going through, people that are not as privileged and all these things. So social media can never substitute. Honestly, sometimes I wonder if I'm actually learning with online school. So I truthfully just cannot wait until we get back to our new normal, because this is not the way to go and it is not safe, in my opinion. So I saw we had a question. Somebody says, I completely agree. Thank you, Sydney. Somebody asks, what are some of the boundaries you think parents can put in place for their children who are using social media platforms, give age ranges? So anyone wants to start? I could start actually. Well, I don't know if I suggest this one, but I do know of a parent that actually has a program installed on her child's device without her child's knowledge. And she monitors everything the child does. Thankfully, the child is a good child, but that is a route, but I don't agree with that. I think in a sense you have to monitor, and there's also parental mode where on these devices you can put it on and then you could, at the end of the day, you could see what the child has been visiting, and that could also be, can also be linked to your phone. So educating yourself about all of these mechanisms that can be used just to make sure that your child is doing what they should. But like we all said, it starts from young, instilling in kids that this is not right, this is not what you should be doing. If anything like this happens, come and talk to me. And that is just how I see it. But the person I was referring to, that child was about in secondary school. Yes, in secondary school, the program is no longer there, but because of everything that was going on in school, and I might say private and public, everything's the same. I went to both, and truthfully, parents saying that at private school we don't know anything, we know just as much as at the public. So, it's building that relationship with your kids. But the next panelist could take into this.
Right. In relation to boundaries, right? You could get technical with that, right? Now, an experience that I can share that used to happen in this house, I don't mind sharing it with you guys. My parents used to have a system, right, where they used to sort of negotiate with us what we thought was a reasonable time to be off of the devices, particularly social media, by a certain time at night, right? Now, and if there was any infringements on that policy that we set up, obviously there will be punishments and so on, whether you lose the device for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever. So it forced you to work within those guidelines, right? As it relates to age range, I think it would be flexible in terms of maturity again, but in relation to age specifically, obviously my time, I'm the eldest in the family, in the children, and I have two younger sisters. But my time would not be the same as their time to get up because I am a bit older. There are a lot more things that I could find myself doing that are of more importance than they would. So my time would be a bit more extended. So say my time was probably 10 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, I need to be off the device. My sisters would have probably 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock to be off of their devices. So that is probably a method you could adopt and use as well. It's up to you.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing could be limiting the amount of social media platforms that your child is exposed to. I remember when I just started off on social media, I was only allowed to be on WhatsApp, communicating with my parents, some friends, and even as I grew older, I was able to probably download Instagram. And reason being is because different apps have different things to offer. And I guess my parents was just being safe with that. So it all depends on the age and maturity, responsibility, it all comes down to these things as well.
Yes, I think I agree with both the other panelists. It has to do with age and maturity. but it also has to deal with you, again, a parent and child relationship. You as a parent have to know, okay, my child can use social media and still be able to manage their schoolwork and stuff like that. And obviously that would be more so for older children, so 15, 16. When it comes to like younger children, you kind of have to, you know, take the reins, tell them, okay, you have to be off X, Y, and Z, just make sure it's not just like a punishment and they understand the reasoning for this, and instead of them seeing it like it's not fair, why do I have to come off specific devices or social media platforms?
I agree. Like everyone else, I have a younger sibling, and at times she might say, "Well, why Chelsea can do this and I can't?" And she's about 6 years younger than me. But when I was her age, and I can hear her outside, when I was her age, I didn't have social media like how it is now. So I didn't have a time to be off of my phone. I probably didn't even have a phone. And she might look at me and say, "Well, Chelsea's on her phone. Why do I have to put down my phone at this time?" But kids, you have to instill in your kids that they're not equal, one, and that there's a reason we are doing these things. Sorry, yeah, doing these things. So I agree with putting a time frame on what time you should take away the phone or put it up. But this also requires discipline, because you might start it the first few weeks, and kids are smart. They will go find the phone. Like my mom used to keep my sister's phone in her drawer. Like when you go to sleep, she's gonna find that. So you have to be very you have to be very careful with how you interact with your kids, but for sure setting a time and instilling that in them from young. So I don't have any more questions, but I do see a question in chat. Okay, it says, does your parent trust that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on social media? Anybody would like to?
Yeah, I don't mind
I
responding
could,
to that first.
yeah, you could go.
Right. No, trust is something that is earned, right, over a period of time, which implicates that there is going to be a period of supervision so that a parent could build that trust in their child. So just asking that question, obviously there's going to be a period through which you have to do regular checkups. I used to experience that when I just started using social media. My parents used to frequently, check my device to make sure that everything that I was doing on social media was in line with the values that we kept in the household. So I think that is essential and important to do. Like I said, if you're somebody who's exercising proper etiquette on social media, it's going to be easier and a lot sooner, a quicker period before your parents trust you enough to not pay attention to what you do on social media. Thankfully, I had that kind of experience where my parents didn't have to check up on me too long because I was conducting myself in a reasonable manner, in line with the values that we set in the family. So that is something to take into consideration.
Yes, I agree. I think a lot of what we're talking about tonight as it pertains to social media and monitoring what your children do on it and how much social media your children use or how much time they're spent on these specific social media platforms has a lot to do with child to parent relationship. You know, as if you and your child have a strong relationship, they're going to know you, they'll know thing. And I think the amount of trust they have on you, personally, I don't think somebody from the outside can really say, well, you shouldn't think, because at the end of the day, I pretty sure parents know their children best. So for me personally, I think my parents trust me when it comes to just knowing me as a child, and my age, it's a certain level of maturity and thing. But the same trust that my parents have for me, would they have for my little siblings? Maybe not, because they're not as mature and not as responsible as I may be.
Okay, so at one point in time, I wasn't disciplined enough to actually put down my phone and say, okay, it's time to do work. And I discovered this app that allows you to set a time, and it doesn't allow you to leave the app unless that time is up. So that has really helped me, along with keeping a timetable, so I know I have to study for a certain amount of time before I actually take a break or pick up my phone to do anything else. So that has really helped.
Right. I completely agree. But could we take Alicia's question?
Hi,
Alicia,
good
are
night,
you?
panel. Yes, I am here. Excellent job. I am enjoying listening to all of you. Good job, Chelsea. Hi, Caleb, Javon, and Renelle. My question is not very difficult. I just wanted to know from each of you what your favorite app was, as in the one that you spend the most time on, and why.
Okay, I can start. My favorite app is Instagram, and it is that because I follow a lot of influencers, but also I don't have to respond to people on Instagram. Sometimes I like to be on social media and I don't want to talk. You know, it's an escape for me, and it is not my means of communication. So I go on Instagram and I scroll and I like pictures and I laugh at memes, but that is just my escape. Passing over to maybe Kayla.
For me, I would say my favorite apps, my top two favorite apps would either be Snapchat or TikTok. Snapchat specifically to, talk to my friends and, just communicate with people who I may not have seen in a long time and stuff like that. And then TikTok, just to have some me time, like Chelsea said. And then I think a lot of people look at social media platform, especially parents, as a negative thing. But you can learn so much on these same social media platforms. Like when the first lockdown happened in Barbados last year, I was using the same social media, but I took this time to learn how to braid my own hair. So instead of spending $120 every summer, this is now something I can take a day to do. And, it allows you to learn a lot of things. Yes, it does have its negatives. And yes, you can find yourself spending a lot of time on it, but there are still some benefits to using social media.
I'll say for me, my two top favorite social media platforms are Instagram and TikTok. Instagram because, as Chelsea said, I follow a lot of influencers and they give advice on certain things. They give promos, as you would say, reviewing certain products that they purchase from online stores, and I enjoy watching those promos. And TikTok because they have short, entertaining videos, and yeah. So those are my two top favorite apps. I think I spend the most time on.
Okay, great. We're gonna take our last questions now. I hope that answers Alicia's question.
You cut off Javon again. I saw Javon.
I'm so
That's okay.
sorry,
That's
Javon.
okay. That's okay. But on my end, it's between the two, WhatsApp and YouTube. WhatsApp because that's where I keep in contact with basically everybody who I need to stay in contact with, whether it be for school purposes because I have a lot of group chats and so on active on WhatsApp, but I also use it as a means of staying connected with the persons who are close to me and I need to just have day-to-day or probably weekly connections with. YouTube, on the other hand, it's a lot more technical. For me, I enjoy looking at a lot of the content that is put out there. I cannot lie, I use YouTube for a lot of research as well. Like I said, I'm a student athlete, so I spend a lot of time on YouTube looking at different ways I can improve my technique as a batsman because that's what I do in cricket. I look at different videos that would help me become better. I actually get lost sometimes looking at the different videos and what different coaches have to say and their perspectives on it. So those are the two apps that I tend to spend most of my time on whenever I'm on social media.
Thank you.
Siobhan, I am so sorry for cutting you off for a second time, but we're gonna take our last questions right now. So, and as we take these questions, I guess each panelist can kind of wrap up and just give us a little contribution or a message that you would like everyone here to know. So our next question asks, what are some of the things that young people do to escape the scrutiny of their parents? Javon, you can start.
All right. Okay, so one of the things that I know, and I have experience with this, is usually there are simple ways of trying to trick the system, right? So I knew that when we used to have to log in our devices, I used to spend sometimes kind of, paying attention to the patterns of where my parents used to go to after we handed in the devices, so I know where they would put it. And then I used to spend days, probably hours, trying to, peck at different places to find the devices, to be able to have access to them whenever I felt like it after the time. And just a tip to all the young people who are in the program, they hide the devices in the most obvious places, just saying. So don't go looking in the places where... My mom just responded as well. So, yes, but yeah, we tend to sometimes, that used to happen particularly for me. Sometimes I used to go trying to look for the devices so I could use it after the time that was allotted to me. To get away from it, sometimes you hide away as well to avoid them remembering that it is time for you to hand it in. Those are just some of the examples that I could relate to because I used to do them. So I don't know, it would be different for different individuals, but those two were extremely popular for me. So let's hear what the other panelists have to say.
Yeah, I mean, going and search for the phone is one of the most obvious things. I used to do that as well. And in the earlier stage of secondary school, I probably used to lie and say I have an assignment to complete and spend, so just so that I can get to spend more time on the device before it's actually taken away. Sorry, Daddy.
Those are two things that I have to say I am guilty of doing myself. Also, when your parents do certain things like the time limits they can set on apps, like if I actually had to use a device for use my device for like an assignment or whatever, when they're putting in the code, I would, look and see what the little numbers were so that, if I see the little time limit comes up and, nobody's around, you just add more time, type it in quickly and, act like you haven't reached your time limit yet. What? I'm not finished yet. My time is not up.
Oh my goodness. I never had instance like this, but I feel like you guys are exposing my sister. My sister says the same thing, Mommy. I have to be in this class group chat. So I hope you guys apologize to her, but those are the things they say. And when my mom goes to sleep, she sleeps hard. I can hear them outside. That phone is gone. So the next question, as it relates to social media, what would you do differently or change when you have your own kids? First of all, no time soon, but I guess I could start first. I will be on top of them. I will be on every social media. I will have spy apps. I will have everything because social media is so good at times, but it is so bad. And like I continue saying with the 9-year-old boy, you can't risk that happening to your kids. So you really have to be on them, and will instill in them from young that certain behaviors and certain things you do not follow. If you, and parts of the body, you don't interfere with things like that. So mommy said don't do this from young, because I mean, as much as most of us were introduced to all of social media in secondary school, that is no more. You're introduced to it like nursery, in my opinion, when you're introduced to the tablet to watch YouTube videos and all of this. So on to the next panelist.
I think for me, more so than me personally, there will be a certain extent of like monitoring until you reach a certain age. But I want that with my children and my relationship with them when it comes to social media. I want them to be able to, if they do something that they should not have done, or if something was said to them, or they need advice on something, they trust me enough that they can come to me about it, even if I will be mad or something, that they can come to me and say, well, X, Y, and Z happened, so I need you to help me, even though they know they're going to be in trouble, or they know, well, they shouldn't have done this, but they don't try to hide it or try to go to somebody else, like a friend or somebody who might not guide them down the right path for help with such specific scenarios.
I'll probably do the same thing my parents did. They monitored me when I was a certain age, making sure that, I'm doing the right thing, and also giving them the best advice I could, make sure that they have a good relationship with me, so that, as Kayla said, they won't be hiding anything, or they would feel free to come and have any conversation, pertaining to anything that they probably came across on social media.
For me, judging by the rapid rate that technology is being advanced in today's society, I will not be surprised if at my baby shower or my wife's baby shower that somebody brings a cell phone or a tablet or some kind of device for the baby. So I think that by the time I'm ready to have children, they'll be probably born with a phone in their hands. So I think it's going to be definitely necessary to instill those values that, for me, a lot of the values that my parents have instilled in me, I take them and I want to use them and adopt them in raising my children as well. So for me, I'm just gonna kind of follow some of the values, like I said, that my parents instilled to help pave the way for respectable and trustworthy use of social media by my children by the time I have kids.
I completely agree. Yes, so just making sure we don't have any more questions. We are past our time. I see Sydney has a question.
Hi, good night. Actually, it wasn't a question, it was more a commentary. I just wanted to say that I actually agree with what Javon was saying because I'm still very young and I don't have any children as yet. But I was saying that I could understand why some people want to filter social media from their children and what's not. But I personally would not filter social media from my child or children, because social media is not filtered and life is not filtered. I can't exactly try and hide the truth from them. So if anything, what I would do was, like he said, instill values and principles in my children and advise them what I believe is right versus wrong. And I would hope that I would have a relationship with them where they could feel open and can communicate with me enough so that if they see something and they think is wrong or are curious, they could come to me and ask me, XYZ, ABC. But yeah, that was just my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to let each panelist give a closing remark. I will start, and once the last panelist is finished, I will hand over to Pastor Henry. But before I give my remark, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and hearing what we have to say. We really appreciate. I wasn't expecting such a huge audience. It was actually a bit nerve-wracking, but We had a great conversation, and we will have another one on March 9th. So please look out for that. But to sum it up, social media, like Sydney said, we can't get away from it and we can't filter it out. It is there and it will be there for many years to come. And we just have to learn to grow with it and manage it in the best way, not only personally, but for our kids in the future. So as for parents right now, monitor your kids and instilling them from young what is right and what is wrong, although, that is normal. But with respect to social media, also, if you find them interacting with certain platforms, don't make it seem like the world is over. Have a genuine conversation with them and let them understand that this is not right, so they don't feel attacked in a sense. And yeah, that's all I have to say. It was great being your moderator tonight, and I will hand you over to Kayla.
I think for me, the one thing I'd want to say before this program is finished tonight is that as a parent, relationships with your children, looking at it from a parent, well, I'm not a parent, but looking at it from both sides, having a strong relationship with your parent and seeing parents' relationships with their children, it does play a major role, not only in social media, but just their whole walk of life, even when they're at university or when they don't live in the same household as you anymore. As it pertains specifically to social media, if you see your child on a device, a lot longer than you would like them to, I would say instead of complaining and say, oh, you're always on that phone, you need to go and do something else, I would say be part of the solution. Like if you think your child is on their phone too much, instead of just complaining and saying, you're on it too much, so put it down or taking it away, be like, help them to, get a break from it, help them to find something to occupy that time, as opposed to just taking it away or quarreling with them.
Yes, Kayla, I agree. And something I want to add to that is, back in the days when my parents were growing up in their generation, pitching marbles was something they enjoy doing. I don't know, that's probably just one of the many that they enjoyed. But as society developed, I guess technology developed a lot as well. And this is something that we just enjoy doing in our free time. So yeah. Other than that, thank you for having me tonight. I really enjoyed this discussion. I learned a lot hearing from the other panelists, Kayla and Javon. Chelsea, I think you did a great job by being the moderator tonight. And yes, thanks for having me.
Right, there isn't much for me to say after my fellow panelists and moderators summed up everything that I basically wanted to say. One thing I want to point out though, and I think that is a good note to end on, is the fact that social media is there. It's not going to change and it's not going to be filtered. So trying to filter it as a parent may be a negative thing, because I don't know if many people pay attention to that, but when you tend to hide particularly children away from certain things, when they get exposed to it, because it's something new and something fresh, they tend to go explore it a lot more. So making sure that you don't take it away totally, but you give them that exposure to it with enough knowledge to know that it's not good. And this is where the values come in. It's absolutely necessary not to hide it from them, but to guide them through it, because trust me, if they're not, it's going to have a very bad effect on them. So it goes back to the relationships as well, the parent-child relationships as well. And just to sum things up, I want to thank everyone who has tuned into the program. I definitely enjoyed it. The responses and questions from the audience was great. Thank you very much for being here. To the other panelists, Kayla and Renel, thank you for being part of this program, and to Chelsea for moderating it so well, and even Pastor Henry and Auntie Sasha and other persons who played essential roles in producing and putting this program together. Definitely looking forward to March the 9th. So have a good night. I hope everyone enjoyed the program.
Amen. I'm going to ask one favor this evening. I've never done this before, but I'm going to ask that each person unmute your mic, put your hands together, and give these young people a big round of applause.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am so proud of them.
Yes, great job. Great job.
So, Dr. Neff, Dr. Sutherland, Dr. Facilitator, who else is there? David, Andrew. It seems as though within the next few months, we are going to have one program per month and the young people will have two. They did a great job. And we want to thank them very, very, very much for the job that they have done. Next week, God's willing, we'll be back with you and we will be discussing wealth management, and we ask you to join us. And this one, I'm certain you're going to be blessed from it also. We're basically looking at the whole idea of creating a budget and how managing the cash that comes into your pocket from day to day. And I'm certain you would enjoy that one also. Time is gone. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you. And this video will be uploaded to YouTube. Just go to the channel Real Talk Family Life, and you would find all our videos there. Young people, thank you again, and the Lord bless you richly. And thanks everyone for joining, and the Lord bless in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Good, good.